In the NBA, you have Hall of Famers and you have non-Hall of Famers. So today I'm going to go through 7 active players who are on the brink of that Hall of Fame, on the cusp, and really give my opinion on whether they're Hall of Famers or not. Before I say, if you like our content, like, comment, sub. I don't only make basketball content, I make different types. Also, I might change my profile picture to something non-basketball related because I don't just make basketball content. I other content. There's TV shows, video games, other sports. So, like diverse content. Also, like, comment, sub. First guy I have on this list is very controversial. It is Andre Iguodala. Now, if you told me a week ago if I had Andre Iguodala in the Hall of Fame, I'd probably say yes. I mean, he's been a really serviceable role player, been a very impactful role player for this Warriors team. However, really looking at his resume, it's not as impressive as I expected. He's actually surprisingly only a one-time All-Star. In the season where he had an All-Star season, he only averaged 12.6 rebounds and 5 assists on pretty solid efficiency. I also think he made all defensive team that year. And of course he has Finals MVP, but I feel like a lot of people really question how much he deserved the Finals MVP. I think he deserved the Finals MVP. I think every Finals MVP is deserved, but people really think that he didn't really deserve the Finals MVP. So when you look at his resume, it's not as good as I expected. You had a single All-Star appearance, I think 2 defensive teams, and a few championships where he was a role player. But I feel like he's a Hall of Famer. Even though he wasn't a multiple-time All-Star, he was one of the best playmakers at his peak at that small forward position, dang near a point forward. He also had a lot of playoff success, even though he was only a role player on a Warriors team, which I think he didn't play still a good role. He was a really good defensive player. He won the Finals MVP for a reason. And personally, I think he's a Hall of Famer. I could easily say or listen to somebody and, I could easily, I guess agree with somebody, and I agree with somebody, but I could definitely understand if somebody said he's not a Hall of Famer. But personally, what he has, and looking at the other Hall of Fame candidates, I'd say he's probably Hall. The next guy I got on this list is Kemba Walker. Now, I feel like Kemba Walker at his peak was a Hall of Fame player. I mean, he was a dude at his peak. People forget, was a top 5 player. He was a good defensive player. I feel like he was kind of an underrated defensive player, but he was ridiculously good offensively. I mean, he was an instant offensive guy, at his peak. He was averaging 22, 23, 25, and 6 on good efficiency per game. But I really think what sets Kemba apart, I think the reason why I probably wouldn't have Kemba Hall of Fame is his playoff career. I feel like Kemba, he's really on the cusp, like a lot of these guys. Of course, that's why I picked him. But I feel like, 1 or 2 more All-Stars, in my opinion, and a few more, playoff appearances, I think would have pushed him over the edge. He still can make the Hall of Fame. He's only 31 years old. I feel like people kind of overrate how difficult it is. I feel like it's a lot easier than people expect to make the NBA Hall of Fame. Like, I've seen guys who, didn't really have a Hall of Fame resume make the Hall of Fame. So I'd say Kemba could easily make it if he had a few more seasons, if he was a good, role player, maybe like a 15-point per game player on a playoff team. I could easily see that. I think I'm going to lean a little towards he will make the Hall of Fame. I like Kemba Walker, but I'm going to say he probably will make the Hall of Fame. Right now, I don't think he's that close, but I think, in 4 or 5 years, I think he'll build up a little bit of a better resume. The third guy we have on this list is Al Horford. Al Horford is a very underrated player. I believe he is a 5-time All-Star. He is a 1-time third-team All-NBA back in 2011. And what makes Al Horford so underrated is, even though statistically he doesn't really pop out on you, he was good. He was a really, overall good center. He was a underrated playmaker, one of the best playmakers of really the past decade of any center. He's been a very good, versatile defender. He's been able to space out the floor. Honestly, I think that the thing he has over Kemba Walker is his playoff success. I feel like with Kemba, he doesn't have that much playoff success right now, but Al Horford honestly has a pretty solid playoff success. Combined with the fact that he's still good, I still think the Celtics can make the playoffs. In fact, I think the Celtics will make the playoffs. And if the Celtics make the playoffs, I think Al Horford can easily play an impactful role on how far they get into the playoffs. So I think it's very probable that Al Horford makes a Hall of Fame by the end of his career. So I'm going to give him a yes. The guy I have on this list is Andre Drummond. Now, from the stats as well, you would think Andre Drummond is pretty much a set Hall of Famer. He's like one of the best offensive rebounders of this era. There were seasons to where you would average, I believe 15, 16 boards a night. But the problem with Drummond is that even though he has all those rebounds, he's only a 2-time All-Star. And again, same thing for Kemba Walker, hasn't had that much playoff success. I think prime Andre Drummond is very underrated, just as a leader in general. I feel like the Pistons teams that they surrounded him with weren't really good, so there really wasn't that much Drummond could have done with the Pistons. But personally, this is going to be hard for me to say, but I don't really see Drummond being a Hall of Famer. I'd say that if he has some really good seasons with the Brooklyn Nets, if he could just be around 10 point per game rebound, a 10 and 10 double machine that could just play an impactful role as a role player, I think he can make the Hall of Fame. But right now, in the path that he's on, I'm unfortunately, even though I really like Andre Drummond, one of my more favorite players in the NBA, I'm unfortunately going to have to give him a no. Fifth guy out of, I believe, 7 on the list is Pascal Siakam. I wanted to add somebody who's relatively young, kind of predict. Of course, Pascal Siakam is not a Hall of Famer. He hasn't done enough, but I think Pascal Siakam can definitely win a few more All-Star games. I think as a leader of the Raptors, he could definitely make the Raptors, have some really good playoff series to where maybe they can make it out the first round to the second round. And Pascal Siakam is such an underrated player. He's a very unique player as well. He's basically a playmaker or a point forward who can score at almost all 3 levels and is a solid defender. I personally think he will make the Hall of Fame by the end of his career. Just because of what I think he could do in the regular season. I really predict a few more All-Star appearances, a few more 20-point game seasons, 7-7 seasons, and I think that the Raptors can be a really good team. The depth that they build up, the length, the versatility, just the talent they have. So, my opinion, I'm also going to have to give Pascal Siakam a yes on the Hall of Fame probability. The 6th guy I have in this teammate is one of Al Horford's old teammates. It's Paul Millsap. Now, I know the word Paul Millsap and Hall of Fame in the same sentence might be very confusing to some people, but honestly, again, I look back on some of the Hall of Famers, the old Hall of Famers, and honestly, Paul Millsap might have a case. I mean, he's a 4-time All-Star and a 1-time All-Defensive player, but I mean, at his peak, he had some pretty solid longevity. From like a 7-8 year time span where he was just a consistent 15, 7, and 3 type guy who was a good defender. Now I feel like, again, what kind of helps Paul Millsap up is that he did have some playoff success. He was on, I believe, a 60-win Hawks team. Pretty solid series, where he's really been the main contributor for the team to make it out of the first or second round. But personally, I'm gonna not say he's a Hall of Famer. I've seen some people say the Hall of Famer. Surprisingly, I know, I haven't seen a lot of people talk about Paul Millsap, but I've seen some people say he's the Hall of Famer. I personally wouldn't say it, even though he has 4 All-Stars. His peak really wasn't that dominant. It's not really about the All-Stars. It's mainly about how good your peak was. And even though he was a really good player, he was a really good defensive player, versatile, and good offensive player. I already said that, but I just don't think, I think he's on the borderline of it, but I don't think he's going to make it, especially because at this age, at 36 years old, he's not really that great of a role player. And the last guy we got is CJ McCollum. CJ McCollum's a unique player. He's definitely one of the most, if not the most underrated players in the NBA right now. He's been playing ridiculously well for the Pelicans, and I feel like ever since he's left that Blazers system, he's just gotten to be more offensively dominant. I feel like the problem with CJ McCollum is that he's not an all-star, so obviously I would have to probably give him a no. What he does in the next few years can maybe give him somewhat of a push for an all-star appearance. I feel like the team that McCollum played on, or at least the system he played on with the Blazers, definitely held him back. I feel like him having to share kind of like the offensive responsibility and kind of like this ISO heavy, I guess, offense where Lillard and McCollum had to share the ball. I feel like it kind of held back a lot of McCollum's offensive opportunities. I think McCollum could have been a Chris Middleton type player, a few all-star appearances, and maybe like a Robin on a real championship threat caliber team. But personally, I don't think he's going to be a Hall of Famer. It's kind of tough that he doesn't have any all-star games. I think he's played really good in the playoffs. I think he's played really good in the season. That's what gives him the edge, despite not having any all-star appearances. But to me, unfortunately, I'm going to have to give him a no. But with that being said, that is the end of this video. Comment down below your thoughts on some of these Hall of Famers. Who should I have done next? Like, comment, sub, yeah, I'm out.